Hello and welcome along to a slightly different review episode from this FM19 story part of the furniture with me, Daniel. It's the end of season 5 and we're going to do our first 5-yearly review to see what's going on in the footballing world, who's winning the big competitions, how have we progressed as a club at Torquay individually, and what else is going on in the footballing world that we need to be aware of. First of all, I've started on this screen because something really took my eye. There's the equivalent 5-year review coming out from our other series, The Head Coach, on Saturday. And there's likely to be a contrasting name on the opposite side of the relationship screen. Darren Ward, who led to our first sacking almost solely at Hemel Hempstead in our other series, is one of our favoured personnel here now, having been a coach here before and then moving on to Slough. He seems to really appreciate us in this universe, so we're happy enough with that, although he's still not our favourite player from the other one. In terms of myself, my reputation's up to nearly 2-star, and I've got another contract extension for 2 years on £2,500 a week now, so I'm doing very well. Although we're in the middle of the off-season now, and there's plenty of transfer activity and things like that going on, we're not going to talk about any of that today. We're here solely to do the review. Season 6 episode 1 will be out as normal on Sunday, and that one will have all of our transfer business from the summer, as well as our plans for next year. But firstly, let's go to the home screen to see the one sad bit of news from the end of this season. We were pipped to the playoffs by MK Dons and said that was absolutely fine as long as they didn't go up. And lo and behold, they went up. Luton, our beloved club, bottled it. Charlton, one of the big teams there, bottled it. And Lincoln had a shocker as well. So unfortunately, it's the franchise MK Dons that are going into the Championship. I was going to say I didn't mean to offend any fans, but you've got to be under 15 to actually be a fan of that club, as they're only 15 years old. But firstly, let's look at the progress of Torquay as a club. If we go to their screen, we can see what's been happening. We've obviously had a remarkable 3 promotions in 5 years. We got stuck this season and we had a season we were stuck in League 2. That just reflects that the Football League's a higher standard. It's a lot harder to move up through the divisions. And realistically, this club's small at the level we're at now. When we were in the National League South, we expected to go up. It was either us or Billericay and they fell away. Again in the National League, we probably expected in our first season to be top half or playoffs. We were, and we were just lucky on the day to sneak through. We had a season in League 2 and then we got promoted there, but now we're at a level where this club's going to struggle without developing. But luckily we're investing in training and youth facilities so we can look to move forward to the next level. The stadium's the only thing to come, but if you request that too early, you end up getting a capacity that's relevant for League 1 rather than for the Championship or Premier League. So let's go and look at the facility screen for the club. We're still at Playmore, the same stadium. If we do go up next year, then we'll request one. But the most important thing is our facilities. This summer we've got another expansion coming to the training facilities, another one to the youth facilities, and perhaps more importantly in our 5 years, we've also managed to get junior coaching up to average and youth recruitment to above average. Remember when we came to this club for the first 2 seasons, we didn't even have a youth intake at all because we didn't have any recruitment in place. So to develop this quickly has been brilliant and I'm sure it will continue into the future. If we get to the Championship, we'll be able to move on again and get everything up another step. But at that point, we'll need to save money for the stadium. I'd imagine the facilities upgrades this year will be a little bit bigger than before. It's a combined 2.4 million, so I'd like to see at least average and above average for the two. So hopefully we'll see that, and they're due to be finished in October. For the club's history, we just want to go and look at the overall best 11s. We've got our first season at the club and then our overall one. So our overall one is absolutely brilliant. It's all the names you'd expect. Owen Jack's worked his way in up there up front, alongside Broja, who was obviously sold for over £1 million, and we'll try and get him back on loan next year. Not many of the players from the National League and below are in there, only Bass and Byrne who are still at the club. Hume's in there having had a season in the National League, and probably the first one in League 2. He's not really a very good player, so I don't know why he's there. The bench is made up of some of the earlier players. Matt Foy, who can forget that hero in the first 2 seasons. Bobson Balling did alright, although I'm surprised he's in that 18. And then Jakob Sokolik, who did so well before throwing his wobbly when we got promoted. Nelson's in the squad as well, so we're very striker heavy. And then don't forget Darren White, the experienced right back. So many names that have come in and out of the club and done really well for us along the way. Jack Clark's one of the men in the middle of midfield. We saw him get a big injury towards the end of last season, so that can negatively impact him. Let's just go and have a quick nostalgic look at the first couple of seasons. Sam Long, Sendles White. Ryan Dixon, all of these players from the first year we keep forgetting. That 18 was absolutely brilliant. I've got to be honest, there's one name in there, Andre White at the bottom, who I don't even remember. Let's go and have a look at him. He's retired now. I think he was the backup to Bobson Ballin, but didn't get many appearances on the right wing. In the National League season, it was a similar vein, just Billy O'Brien came in goal. Remember in that season, Alex Bass wasn't at the club as Portsmouth wouldn't let him out. We got him back when we got into the Football League, and Billy O'Brien was replaced by Jamie Jones around January or February time. Other than that, we've got some superstars there. Barley Mumba and Amir Berkovitz. Jake Scrimshaw got 20 goals in the National League. He's a player who's been struggling out on loan since, and actually retired because he couldn't get a club this season. Rhys Williams was on the bench for that one. He was only here half a year before leaving in January for Hearts. He obviously came back this January and is a key player in the first 11 as we look to get promoted from League One. We got the likes of Cairo Edwards-John and Jack Payne, who had the awesome long throw that really helped us up that division. Into our first season in the Football League, a few familiar names again. Brad Walker got back into the side that one. Westbrook, Alex Pike, there's a few names there. And Matthew Platt on the bench alongside the likes of Adam Phillips and Alex Kawamya, who really doesn't deserve to be in that 18. On to last season where we got promoted. Similar team to now actually. We didn't change a great deal this year. Most of the first 11's the same. It's just that we changed formation with Rowan McDonald in the holding role as he came in on loan instead of Broja. On the bench we got the likes of Carl Roberts, who we sold on to Rangers for huge money. Nick Freeman, who we sold on during the window as well. And Leighton Clarkson, who we had on loan from Swansea. Elliot Lee made his first appearance that year. He came into the club and was disappointing overall, but scored that crucial brace at Oldham to see us up. One of the games that's most memorable for me during the 5 years. It seems a bit strange that Connor Davis has got into the first 11 based on 10 appearances, but again it looks like he did well during them. And then this year, it's obviously a different formation. It's the 11 you'd probably expect, to be honest. There's no one in there that surprises me. The only possible change would have been Rhys Williams for Aaron Davis, but again Davis played more of the season. So an expected 11 is probably our first 11 if you'd asked us to name one, and we're not surprised that that's what's been picked. So plenty of nostalgia there. Let's see if there's any records we've broken in the meantime. I don't think there are, to be honest. We got our biggest gate receipts this season on New Year's Eve as we played Aston Villa at home in the FA Cup. That meant Owen Jack got chased for about half a year after and is still unhappy as Villa want them. They're a top half Premier League team now. We got 800 grand for Carl Roberts, a record fee. It's obviously still going to be rising as well. There's a few others that could rise above it once all the clauses have been met. And our highest paid fee this January was to bring back Rhys Williams for 185,000, although that's less than we sold him for a few years earlier. As well as being 2 divisions higher. That's brilliant business. And then the one stat that jumps out to me from the right hand side, our first ever game, I don't know if you remember it, the video from season 1 episode 2, Mikhail Kennedy in our first ever match at Torquay scored after 14 seconds the fastest goal, and I had my Chris Kamara moment. I completely missed it and I didn't see what had happened because I was still fiddling with the settings as it was my first game of the year. So that was another memorable moment for me, and we've never scored a quicker goal since. We'll do well to in the whole save, as 14 seconds is very fast. Over the next 5 years, there's one record I am hoping to break, and that's the youngest goal scorer and youngest player as well. The current holders from the early 90s, the year I was born in fact. But since then, because there haven't been youth intakes, and then we've got low facilities the first couple of years, we haven't had any superstars come through. If we can get one of those in the next few years, we'll give them so many opportunities to become a hero at the club. But plenty of brilliant things have happened in these 5 years, and we couldn't be more happy with where we are at the moment. One thing we do still have to concede, looking at our transfer fees received, is we are a selling club, and that will remain the case until we've got a new stadium, great facilities, and are probably in the top half of the Premier League. So many years before we have to worry about that. If you didn't hear me mention it in the last episode, I'd like to get promoted to the Premier League by the end of season 10. I know that's ambitious, but hopefully we can get 2 more promotions. The Championship's the one I normally get stuck in, so that may be the one that holds us back. But brilliant progress so far, and we're delighted with how things are going at Torquay. So let's go and have a look at some of the world's biggest competitions, just to see how they've gone in the first few years. Let's have a look at the Champions League to start off with. Holders Manchester City won it this weekend in a final against Arsenal, an all-English final, and look at the last 5 years. PSG the year before, but then United twice in a row, and Atletico Madrid the season before that. So some surprises in there, not in terms of the winners, but particularly the fact that Arsenal were in the final, and it's so dominated by English sides, which seems a little bit strange. Onto the Europa League, Chelsea won it this year, another English side. 4 out of 5 are English teams again. Lyon breaking the spell last year. Chelsea won it either side of that, including this season's one. And then Tottenham and Arsenal in the first 2 seasons. So lots of English dominance in Europe. That silly third competition isn't in here yet. That's something Football Manager players have got to look forward to next year. The Super Cup's largely been won by the opponent rather than the English side. Just one for Spurs and one for United. If we go and look at the English Premier League, we'll look at all the English leagues just to see if there are any surprises. We wouldn't expect it after just 5 years, but you never know. So the first season it was actually won by Arsenal. That's a little bit strange. I'm sure Emery would have taken that this year in real life. Then it was back-to-back wins for Manchester United. Who are they managed by in this save? Still Mourinho, I bet. No, it's Allegri. We'll take that back. I was sure Mourinho would still be dominating the world, as he seems to do in every edition of FM. But Arsenal won it, 2 for United, and then Liverpool the last 2 seasons. Have they still got Klopp in charge? They haven't. It's Diego Simeone. So it's all changed at the top clubs. Let's look at Arsenal while we're there, just in case. Is that still Emery? Yes, it is. So he's stuck around, and the rest of the clubs are a little bit uncertain. You can see the big 6 are up there this season in the top 7. Only Wolves breaking the mould, but Chelsea obviously won the Europa League, which is why they're going into the Champions League next season. 5 representatives from England, so that should make things a bit easier for them. There's no real surprise names up there. They're all clubs that were in either the Premier League or Championship at the start, so we can't complain about that. If we move on to the Championship, the playoff final this year won by Sheffield United. The usual suspects up there, they're all Championship clubs. West Ham staying down for another year. Bristol Rovers were up in the Championship, but they've been relegated, so not many surprises there either. It's been won by various clubs in the last 5 years, Everton having to make their way back last season too. They always seem to struggle in FM for some reason. Down to League One, the league we're in at the moment. We don't want to focus on MK Dons nicking a promotion on penalties. Usual suspects winning a title. Clubs that have come down, or clubs that were expected to be near the top from the start. No real big surprises in there other than ourselves, obviously, and the mighty Maidstone United, who we focused in an episode earlier in the season. The big shocker this season is Sheffield Wednesday going down to League 2. I'm not sure when they got relegated. They've been down for 3 years. They finished 3rd, 4th and 4th, and now this season they've gone down in 23rd. That seems like a bit of a money's run out situation. They've still got players on 5 figures a week, so I'm not sure what's going to happen to them in League 2. And speaking of League 2, what's going on down there? The playoff final won by Plymouth. They're coming back up to League 1. Obviously we won it 1 year, and I wouldn't say there are any other huge surprises aside from that. Yeovil, Scunthorpe and Peterborough this year, a side that were nearly there last year but just fell away. Blackpool and Wycombe leave the Football League. That's interesting to say the least. I wonder if Blackpool will end up in the regional leagues if they're still struggling financially. There's some classic non-league clubs in the Football League. Billericay keep paying over the odds in this series of FM. Nothing's happened like real life. They've got a player on £6,500 a week. I mean, for goodness sake, they're ruining League 2 as well now. Fylde are up there as well. They've got a good ground and they're really investing well in real life. So I can understand why they're up there too. If we go down to the National League, let's see who won the playoff final there. Tranmere back into the EFL. York won that league as well, back into the Football League after starting in the Vanarama National League North. We're obviously responsible for Tranmere getting promoted, as the top scorer in the division's Robert Humphreys, who's on loan from us at the moment. The only other club stuck in non-league that might be a bit of a surprise is Oldham. They're a bigger club, normally a League 1 side. Obviously they went down to League 2 in real life last year, and it looks like the slides continued in-game. Stevenage, obviously one of the sides we've managed in our other series, their head coach. They're back down in non-league as well. They had about 15 years in the EFL, but it seemed to be a bit too much for them in the end. And then Chesterfield haven't been able to get out either, nor have Hartlepool. Moving on to the regional leagues, where it all started for us. Obviously it's the North first, which we weren't a part of. You'd have to do very well to get Torquay in the Northern League. FC United have won it this year. There's not really any shocks in there. Stockport had to win it twice after being a yo-yo club, but they're very much in the National League now. Altrincham have been relegated out of the North, so they're going to be down into the 7th tier next season, which is a bit of a shame for them. Kettering back up there's a name we recognise, but nothing else really stands out for us. And down to the south, our first division in this series. Let's see who won it this year. Wellston won the playoffs and Woking won the league. Dagenham and Redbridge got relegated. They won it in the 3rd season. Billericay in the 2nd year got it as well, after bottling it in the season we went up. Bognor Regis, obviously the first ever club we managed in a series on this channel. That was back in FM19, the head coach. They've been relegated back down from the south this season. Dorking Wanderers are up there. They're one of the clubs I'm flirting with managing at the start of next season if they get promoted to the National League South. I don't see any other hugely surprising names in there, but feel free to get in the comments if you've noticed anything in some of the leagues that I haven't. The only other things we're going to look at are the English FA Cup and the Carabao Cup. So the FA Cup was won by Arsenal this year. Thank God they beat Watford in the final. We couldn't be having that. The last 5 years have been dominated by the Big Six. Arsenal with their 2nd win this season, Liverpool got 2 and City have won 1 as well. And then in the Carabao Cup, who's done that one this year? Man City again, and a similar story. 2 for City, 2 for Liverpool and 1 for United. So no surprises there. Should we look at the Community Shield just to see in case? It's a similar story again as you'd expect. So probably for the first 5 yearly review, a little bit too early for big surprises in terms of teams being in leagues miles away from where they started. We're the furthest away, which is 3 divisions. Although there are some clubs, including the likes of Blackpool, who could be on a massive slide now they're in non-league. But that concludes my end of 5 year review. We've had a look at Torquay and we've had a look at the world of football, as well as England and European competitions. We just want to see who's winning the big ones, the ones that we're aiming to win by the end of this series. If there's anything else you want to know, let me know in the comments and I'll look it up and tell you. But if you did enjoy this episode, please put a thumbs up on it. Let me know what you think of our progress report from Torquay. How far ahead of schedule do you think we are? And do you think I'm right? Can we make it to the Premier League in 10 years? Is there anything that stood out to you from any of the other competitions we've looked at? Or is it all as you expected? I certainly didn't see any other major ones, other than the Sheffield Wednesday and Maidstone stories, which we've seen ourselves firsthand in League One this year. Subscribe to the channel for daily FM19 content from my 2 long-term stories. The next episode of our other series, The Head Coach on Saturday, will be a similar 5 year review. But in that one, we'll actually be looking at all of the clubs we've managed during the 5 seasons, which if you haven't following that series, has been quite a few. So if you haven't seen it yet, go back and catch up with the series in full. But otherwise, we'll have our 5 year review on Saturday. This one will be back on Sunday with the start of Season 6, and what I hope will be a very busy transfer window to report on. There's also weekly content from my FIFA 19 lower league career with Crew Alexandra, as well as the final episode of our FM19 Touch series with Newcastle United from our Christmas challenge. That one's out on Friday at 3 o'clock. But a massive thanks for watching and continuing to follow my content on the channel. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you next time for the start of Season 6.